Welcome to Too Many Podcasts, the podcast about podcasts. Now, podcasting from the Sherpa Chalet on Mount Podcastia, here's your host, Jim, the podcast Sherpa.
Hello there, and welcome to the show. I'm Joe Rogan. I'm taking over. No, it's me. Your old buddy Jim, the podcast Sherpa. How's everybody doing this week? I hope you've had a Sherpalicious week last week, and that after you hear the show, your week gets even better. I get to start this week off with a little bit of good news, and that good news is our friend Bruce Goldberg, who was in the hospital, who I previously reported. He is now out of the hospital, and he's home, and he's recuperating, and Brucey buddy, we wish you all the best, and we hope you are feeling better. Pretty soon, you and I will have to have a nice little chat and make some plans, okay? Now, for those of you who are listening to the show, I have to make a simple request of you. Just make sure that all of your affairs are in order, that your house is secured down, and that you know who's going to get that last piece of chocolate cake. Why am I asking you to do all these things? It's a theme week.
It's theme week. It's theme week. It's theme week.
And what is that theme, you may ask? Well, it's Women's Health Week. That's right. It's probably something you weren't expecting to hear from me, but it is very important. And we have women in our lives that are very special to us, whether they're our wives or our moms or our sisters or anybody else, even just a good female friend. And this week's guest will be very special. And she's definitely going to provide us with a lot of useful information, especially for the men in their lives, too.
Who's our guest today, Sherpa?
She's a midwife. She's a doula. She's a yoga instructor. And she's also the host of the podcast, Women's Health Matters. Her name is Monica Wallace. I think you're really going to like what she has to say. I found her fascinating. I was really thankful that she had the time to come down to the Sherpa Chalet and impart some knowledge to us. Lots of stuff that guys don't know, but they really need to hear it, and she's just the perfect person to deliver it. Let's head on down to the conference room in the Sherpa Chalet and have our chat with Monica. But before we head on down, just a reminder that today's podcast is brought to you by Audible, and you can get a free audiobook download and a 30-day free trial at www.audibletrial.com/Sherpa. And there's over 180,000 titles to choose from for your iPhone, your Android, your Kindle, or your MP3 player. All right, let's head on down to the conference room. Hey there, all you rebels of the Sherpalution. We are here in the conference room at the Sherpa Chalet via video. And I am boldly going where no man has gone before. I'm going to be speaking about women's health issues, but I'm not too worried because I have a Sherpa to guide me tonight. She is a midwife. She's a doula, a health educator, and a yoga instructor. And she also hosts the podcasts, Women's Health Matters. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the podcast, Monica Wallace. How you doing, Monica?
I'm doing well. Thank you. How are you?
I'm doing very well, thanks. Why don't you tell the folks a little bit about yourself?
Sure. I am a licensed and certified professional midwife here in the state of Florida. I'm also a doula, so I'm an all-seasons doula, and what that means is I support women through all seasons of their lives. So if you've heard of a doula before, you may think of pregnancy and birth doula. But what I actually do is I coach women through menopause, through pregnancy, birth, women's health disorders, things like that. So I actually am an all-seasons doula. I've been a doula for 21 years, and I'm also a certified yoga instructor and a health coach. And I have been in the field of women's health for about 22 years now.
Wow. All this time I always thought that a midwife and a doula were the same thing, but not at all, right?
Yes. A lot of people have that misconception. They always ask me, I get that question all the time. Isn't a midwife and a doula the same thing? And the answer is no, we're not. And for me, I'm one person and I do both, but for the most part, a midwife and doula are two separate things. So a doula does not provide any medical care whatsoever. A doula is basically the coach. So she supports women. She provides the education, the knowledge. She gives her, all of the tools that she needs to do whatever she's supporting her through, whether it's pregnancy, birth, through women's health disorder diagnoses, through women's health treatments, things like that. And so she's there basically just to be the support person. The midwife, on the other hand, is the medical provider, just like an OBGYN in that sense, but not like an OBGYN in other senses. But she's the medical care provider for women during pregnancy and childbirth and the postpartum period. So basically, instead of going to see the OBGYN, you would come to see the midwife for all of your prenatal care, and the midwife would deliver your baby and provide medical care during the postpartum period.
So you could probably do both for one client. Is that allowed?
No, actually, I couldn't because, technically, sure. But when I'm there as the midwife and I'm providing the medical care, I need to pay attention to the clinical aspects of, the client. So trying to be at someone's birth and being the support person who provides the education and the knowledge and the advocacy and, massages your back and rubs your feet and, rubs your temples with essential oils. Sure, I could do that, but then I'm not paying attention to the clinical aspect of the actual labor.
Okay. So how do people usually engage you? Do they, once they find out they're pregnant, do they call you, or is it just further along, or? Yeah,
usually, most women, especially first-time women who are pregnant for the first time, they want to come see their midwife right away. They want to hear the baby's heartbeat, and they want to have all of the blood work done and the testing and have an ultrasound and make sure that everything is normal and healthy. So yeah, I usually get calls pretty early on in pregnancy, and then I start seeing women around 12 weeks of pregnancy. Just when the first trimester is ending.
And, I was listening to one of your shows. I guess you were talking about certain pain that women could experience. And I think that's kind of where your experience as a yoga instructor kicked in, because it was a very calming tone. And that must really come in handy for you when you're dealing with your clients in probably neither capacity, right?
It does. It does come in handy because yoga in general helps so much with pain and with relaxation and calming. And so I feel it really goes hand in hand with midwifery care, because that's what I'm there to do as well, especially when women are in labor. But prenatal yoga is excellent for pregnancy as well. And, I actually had women hire me as their midwife or their doula just from a prenatal yoga class that I taught them, because I had one woman come up to me and she's like, if you doula anyway and near the way that you teach yoga class with your voice and your calming tone and everything, I want you. I have to have you at my birth. So
you do yoga classes for expectant women also?
I do prenatal yoga and, regular, it's actually called Kripalu yoga.
Okay. And how far along can they be in their pregnancy for you to be able to train them like that in yoga?
They actually, for women who were practicing yoga before they got pregnant, they can continue to practice yoga all throughout the pregnancy. There's no time during the pregnancy where they have to stop or wait. For women who were not practicing before their pregnancy, it's recommended that they do very gentle yoga poses until after they get out of their first trimester. And then they can start doing more advanced yoga poses for pregnancy, because the first trimester is when the risk of miscarriage is higher. So you want to kind of stay away from certain poses during that time if you weren't doing them before.
You said you've been doing this for how many years? 21 years?
I started in the women's health field. Actually, I did an internship. It was 1995. So I guess that's about 25 years ago now, 24 years ago now.
About how many deliveries have you participated in?
Over 1,000.
Wow.
Yes. It's around 1,100.
That's a lot of babies being born.
A lot of babies, a lot of people who who are, now grown adults now, which is kind of crazy to even think about.
I guess you've probably been present for like multiple births, like if twins and triplets and everything.
Yeah. Well, as a midwife, I actually don't deliver multiples because they are considered high risk. So they see an obstetrician. But as a doula, yes, I have supported many women who had twins and triplets. I even had quadruplets because I provide postpartum care as well, meaning I go and I support the family after the baby's born and after they get home from the hospital. So I've had some trips and quadruplets as well doing that.
Wow, that must be amazing too.
Yeah, it's fun. It is. It's a lot of fun.
What, was there something that made you want to get into this field?
Yes, there is. There was. Well, ever since I was a little girl, I remember always saying I wanted to be a baby doctor. I didn't really know what that meant exactly, but I knew that I wanted to do something that had to do with babies. So as I got older, I learned that, there's obstetricians, there's doctors. And actually, when I was a teenager, when I was in high school, I had a friend who got pregnant. And she asked me to be at her birth because she knew that I was very interested in it. And I went and I was with her in labor. We were 16 years old. I drove my car for the very first time at night that night when she called me. I was that young, I had never driven at night before. And it was kind of a traumatic labor and birth for her as well as for me, because it just wasn't what I envisioned birth to be like, calm and gentle and positive. There was a lot of negativity and there was a lot of screaming, and it wasn't from my friend, it was from the doctor. And, just ever since that moment, I remember driving home after the baby was born and I was like, you know what, something's got to be different about this. There's got to be someone who can support women in this and help educate them and help them learn more about their bodies in the process of pregnancy and birth and babies coming out, so that they're not so scared. So there's not so much fear surrounding the process, and so when women or anybody at all gains more knowledge, they become more confident and they begin to feel more empowered in that situation. And so I just knew from that moment that that's what I was here to do.
Well, that's an interesting way to find a calling too. I mean,
yes, it is.
Birth of a friend.
Right.
What do you think that women should be the most aware of when it comes to like their health?
Well, I think that what women should be the most aware of is that they have control over their health. They don't. Look, doctors are very wise and very smart people, but they also sometimes come across as the all-knowing. And I want women to know that they can participate in their healthcare, that they can have conversations with their doctors and they can ask questions and they can, educate themselves so that they learn more about their bodies and they learn. You would be so surprised to know how many women actually don't know the anatomy of their bodies. And if we just knew the proper anatomy even, we would be so much more confident in our healthcare and more confident in going and talking to our doctors about things like periods and cramps and hormones and things like that. And those things have been so taboo for such a long time, and things that women have been told that they shouldn't be talking about, that they're not even talking to their doctors about it. And they're embarrassed or they're scared or they're shy or whatever the case may be. And so they're not becoming active participants in their own healthcare, and they're not confident and they're not feeling empowered. And so they're doing things that they may not want to do regarding their healthcare, and they shouldn't have to do that. So I think that's the first step.
And now make this one a little bit trickier for you. What do the men in their lives need to be aware of in regards to their women's health issues?
The men in their lives need to really just be supportive of that. I think that's the best that the men can do at this point, because sometimes men also think that these subjects are a little bit taboo. and they're a little shy and they're a little embarrassed too. And so, that's okay. But also at the same time, you can be supportive. As a man, you can be supportive of your woman and what she's trying to do, educate herself and participate in her healthcare. And, not just say, listen to your doctor. He knows what he's talking about. You know what I mean? And sometimes that's the case because, especially with pregnancy and birth, even a lot of men are just like, no, just let the doctor handle it. Like we don't have to be part of this. And that's not true. The men need to be there and support their ladies.
I was curious as to how many fathers you probably came across who would, if you talked about something intimate, they would put their hands on the ears and go, la, la, la.
Oh, yeah, yes. You have no idea. A lot. I mean, and then there's some men who are totally into it. And they're asking all the questions and they're like, oh yeah, tell me more about this and tell me more about how this works. And then, but there's also the fathers who are like, oh no, I got to leave the room. I just can't even talk about this. So, but that's the thing. That's like what our society has created so much taboo around these subjects. And it's so unnecessary. It's a normal process. We can talk about it. It's totally fine.
And a lot of our, I guess, parents or grandparents, depending on how old you are, the father wouldn't even be in the delivery room. It would just be like, okay, right. I'm waiting in the waiting room and you can call them when everything's done.
And they're sitting in the waiting room and they suddenly hear the baby cry and they're like, oh, okay, the baby's here. I mean, but that was the norm back then.
When women are younger, when they're in elementary school age, they have to see what's called, I don't know even know what it's called, the movie about their changing bodies.
Right. Yes.
About periods and menstrual cramps, and I've never seen it. I la la la.
Right.
Right. But if you actually had to make that kind of movie for young girls, would there be anything that you would put in that movie?
Well, yes. I mean, there's a lot I would put in that movie. But I think, and this is one thing that I talk about a lot in my show as well, is that women have kind of been failed by the education system when it comes to learning about our bodies, starting from elementary school or middle school, high school even. And, we have one of those classes where they do teach you a little bit here and there about it, but they don't give you a lot of information. They don't actually, sit down with anybody and say, look, when you get your period for the first time, this is what to expect. And this is what's going to happen. And this is what's normal. And this is what's abnormal. And, talk to you about hygiene and sanitary napkins and tampons and things like that. They don't talk to you about any of that stuff in school. And so, yeah, if I were to make a movie like that, I would definitely add all of those things that I just stated, especially for younger girls in elementary school or middle school. They have a lot of questions. And if they're not getting those questions answered in school or by their parents, which a lot of times they don't get them answered by their parents because their parents are shy and embarrassed too, then they're going to go and they're going to ask their friends, or they're going to go on Facebook and they're going to try and learn about it on Facebook. And trust me, I've been in these Facebook women's health groups, and they're not the place to learn about your body. So yeah, I would have a lot to say in that movie.
Yeah, well, like you said, knowledge is power. So that's the more knowledge you're going to give them, the easier it's going to be for them as they grow older and deal with these things.
Absolutely.
I know because you deal with women's health education, I had to field a couple of questions from the lovely Sherpa bride. So these are two questions from her.
Okay.
Okay. The first question is, at what age should you start getting your bone density tested?
So women who are 55 and older should start getting bone density tests because at that age, they're at high risk for osteoporosis. It's very important to make sure that their bone density is not being depleted. And that can happen for many reasons. It can happen when women begin menopause and the hormones change. It can happen earlier in life if there's hormonal conditions going on or something happening. It can happen to women who were on birth control when they were younger, women who have never had a pregnancy. So there's a lot of different risk factors for older women to lose their bone density. So it's important to have that done after the age of 55.
Are there other things that they should be doing in the meantime to kind of help maintain the density? Is that like exercise or certain calcium?
Exercise absolutely can help. Also, making sure you're getting plenty of calcium. Vitamin D is excellent because vitamin D and calcium kind of go hand in hand when it comes to absorption of the calcium. So, obviously, living a healthy lifestyle, eating anti-inflammatory foods, because when there's a lot of inflammation in your body, inflammation can actually deplete your bone density. So yeah, there are definitely some things that women can do to prevent that from happening.
And her second question was, what are the healthy levels of vitamin D when you get your blood work done?
Okay, well, see, vitamin D. So vitamin D between 25 and 50. So when you go to the doctor, have your blood work done, it should come back between the range of 25 and 50 is normal and healthy for most women.
Can they have too much vitamin D or too, well, obviously they can have too little. Can they have too much or?
Yeah, they can have too much also. Yes.
Does that affect them in any way, or it's just?
It can have ill effects on their health in different ways. I'm honestly not too familiar with the health effects of excess vitamin D because, to be honest with you, most women in this country, at least, especially, do not have excess vitamin D. Our problem right now is that women are very vitamin D depleted. Even women who live in, because we get vitamin D from the sun, even women who live in areas where it's very sunny, like in South Florida, I personally myself was very depleted in vitamin D, and I'm in the sun all the time. So I had to start on a vitamin D supplement. So it's really important that women do get their vitamin D checked because it's very rare that you'll have excessive levels of vitamin D. Usually it'll be a lack of vitamin D. And also for women who are trying to get pregnant, vitamin D is extremely important because it can affect your fertility as well. It can affect your egg quality.
Well, I will say thank you to you on behalf of the Sherpa Bride for answering those questions.
You and she are very welcome.
And since, as we say, this is the podcast about podcasts, are there any special podcasts that you like to listen to? There
are a couple. So I like to listen to The Birth Queens. So it's a podcast basically about birth and about doulas and midwives. So of course I like to listen to that podcast. Then there's another one called Women Inspiring Women. That's just a really good podcast. I think the host name is Melanie something. I can't remember her last name, but that's a great podcast for women as well. So, I mean, my podcasts that I listen to are a lot about birth and pregnancy and women and women's health. Sometimes I'm just flipping through it and I'm not even paying attention to what I'm listening to, but I know that those two I go back and listen to all the time. So yeah, those are my podcasts.
We have the portion of the show called Shameless Self-Promotion.
Shameless Self-Promotion.
You can let our listeners know how they can get in touch with you or anything else that you'd like to share with them.
Okay. All right. Great. So you can find me on Facebook and Instagram at Women's Health Matters Now, Facebook and Instagram. On Twitter, I am at Midwife Monica. And if you want to shoot me an email, you can always reach me, midwifemonica@womenshealthmattersnow.com. And my podcast is the Women's Health Matters Podcast. You can find me basically anywhere you listen to podcasts. Just search for the Women's Health Matters Podcast and anchor.fm/Women's Health Matters as well. So in the podcast, I'm on episode 7. Episode 8 is coming out pretty soon. And in the podcast, I'm basically talking about anything that you need to know about women's health. I just went over the menstrual cycle, all the intricacies of the menstrual cycle, how to connect with your menstrual cycle. I went over irregular periods, how to track your fertility. I talk a lot about what we talked about in this show as well tonight. Things that are taboo, empowering yourself when it comes to your own healthcare, learning about your bodies, educating yourself. And I also provide, like I said earlier, the all seasons doula services where I am actually there to support you and coach you through finding your own wellness and empowering yourself in your health and your healthcare. And we set up a plan for you. We have Zoom calls, and I'm basically step by step holding your hand all the way to optimal wellness. I also teach private yoga classes online. I also have a yoga page on Instagram, which is the Yogi Midwife. And it's just basically me giving a whole lot of inspiration on women's health and showing you all of my cool yoga poses that I love to do every day. And I also provide virtual prenatal care. So this is a new really cool thing that I provide. And I love this idea. I think it's so cool because a lot of women don't want to leave their house for prenatal care. So you can actually get prenatal care with a midwife in the comfort of your home. And we basically go over everything, all of the education that you would go through in prenatal care with a midwife. Not really prenatal care with an OB because those are quicker visits and there's not a whole lot of education sometimes. But when you have midwifery care, the midwifery care provides an awful lot of education, information, and knowledge on what to expect during the pregnancy, what you should be eating, how you should be exercising, tips on how to sleep better, things like that. So I provide that service as well. So you can, again, contact me at Midwife Monica at womenshealthmattersnow.com or send me a DM on Facebook or Instagram at Women's Health Matters Now.
Yeah. All right. So listen, if you guys are checking out the show, men, it's a great place to refer your women in your life. And you should listen too, because you'll learn as well and understand your woman a little bit better.
Yes.
But Women's Health Matters.
I say that all the time. It's not only for women. It's because, men sometimes they want to know what's going on too. Like I said, I had so many fathers who come to the prenatal visits and they want to know everything because they want to be able to support their women. They want to be able to support their wives. So, if you want to learn a little bit about how your wife or your woman or your girlfriend or whoever's body and health is working, then it's a great show to listen to.
Yeah, I would agree 100%. Women's Health Matters is the name of the podcast. And yes. I've been speaking with Monica Wallace. Monica, thank you very much for enlightening me. And thanks for being so on the show.
It was a pleasure.
And now it's time for Sherpa Suggestions.
If you like Monica's podcast, Women's Health Matters, here are a few podcasts that have to do with pregnancy and women's health matters. We have the Birth Fit podcast. We have Yoga Birth Babies. We have the Birthful podcast, the Feel Good podcast, and finally we have the V Word, which around the Sherpa Chalet means voiceover, right? So that's what that one's about, voiceovers? Wait, what? Wait. Oh, yeah. No, it doesn't mean voiceover. Never mind. Thanks again to Monica Wallace of Women's Health Matters. And be sure to check out her podcast. I think this is the first podcast where we've actually used the word midwifery more than once. So next week, we have another wonderful show and another wonderful guest. Her name is Samantha Jones, and she is a psychic medium, and we will be talking about the psychic world. I'm sure you'll be looking forward to that. We had a really great conversation. Both Samantha and Monica have been great guests, and I really appreciate both of them coming down to the Sherpa Chalet and informing us. So there's always a fun place to learn here down at the Sherpa Chalet, and I'm always glad to learn new information. We've only got a few more episodes until the end of season 1, and yes, there will be a season 2, I promise you. I'm working on getting some guests for next season. Hopefully the ones who couldn't make it for season 1 will be on season 2. I'm keeping my fingers crossed for that. And in the meantime, follow us on social media on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. We're there. And of course, I have that website, which is jimthepodcastsherpa.wixsite.com/website. Don't forget, if you can leave me a review, that would really, 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 really make my day on Apple Podcasts or iHeartRadio or Stitcher.com. Any place there, a kind word. And if you can't do that, do me a favor and at least tell one person about the podcast. Or even if you can take the links to my show and share them on your social media pages so other people can get to check it out. If you need to know how to do that, you can email me at jimthepodcastsherpa@gmail.com. I will be happy to help. It's really, really easy. So in the meantime, thank you so much again, Monica, and we'll see you next time with Samantha Jones. Have a Sherpalicious week. Mr. Bruce, take us out of here!
Thanks for listening to Too Many Podcasts. Please disperse. You can go home now. I said you can go home now. Viva la Sherpalition. Viva la Sherpalition. Oh. Yeah, I'll come back now, you hear?